Welcome to Bull Banter. Today we'll be previewing our clash with Melbourne City this Friday with help from one of the lads from the Talking City podcast, Matt. Now, for our fans who mostly just follow the Bulls games and don't have their eyes on the league at large, I wanted you to give us some idea, Matt, of what to expect from City. First up, how would you describe City's play style?
Yeah, look, it's direct and it's fast. Those long counter-attacking 45-degree balls to opposite corners to release your Naboos, your Noons, even your Jamie McLarens. That's kind of what you'll see. You'll see a lot of overlap, but it's fast, it's attacking, and to be honest, it's quite exciting to watch.
Yeah. So you would say they sort of look to release a quick ball rather than build up possession?
It depends on the way the other team sets up, and how tactically we match up. We do see a lot of ball played quickly just because it suits the attacking style that we're trying to play. But that's probably throwing a bit of mud at a midfield that is better than the quality that we see sometimes. You got players like Florent Berenguer, Adrian Luna, Roston Griffiths, Connor Metcalf, who scored a brace, last weekend. So the midfield is definitely a key part, and it's a bit of a mix. So you'll see a lot of counter-attacking long balls where the timing is there, where the fullbacks try to push forward too early. But if the ball's not on, they don't try and force it, which is always good. They try and play some nice slow build-up, which is, in my opinion, really good football.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys are stacked with talent, being the moneyed club. Just to drive a bit further into that, obviously, I don't know if you've watched too much of the MacArthur Bulls this season, but we're a team that sort of will look to set up with a possession style of play, work the ball, kind of a slow build-up, run the defence around, and then hopefully look for gaps, especially down the wings and swing in a ball to Matt Derbyshire. So, how do you think City might set up against that style of play?
To be honest, I don't see much changing. I think the way that you guys play that slow build-up really suits the way City likes to play. It'll be a game where I think we'll see City probably take control of the possession and really try to dictate terms. And MacArthur trying to be slow to build up, I think, is actually going to be to your own detriment. I think we've seen other teams have shown the quick plays how to catch City, and even then, it's not even really a clear-cut tactic, in my opinion. I think, you've just got to really set pieces where you can score on City, and I think that's where you guys will be the most dangerous. But I think anytime it's slow and methodical, I think that's really going to help City get back. And the way that City presses, I think any slow ball movement is going to get snatched upon. And I think Sydney really got found out that way when they came down to play us at Amy Park, because they were a bit slow in possession, and Melbourne City were able to pounce.
Yeah, it's one of the things that frustrates me watching the Bulls. We are pretty set in our ways. Ante Milicic is obviously trying to instill a certain style into the club, but sometimes it lacks a bit of flexibility. So I guess it's going to be an interesting one to see how you guys seem to be flexible and play what's in front of you. I wanted to move on to our next question. So I wanted to ask you, what impact has Patrick Kisnorbo had on the side this inaugural season as manager? And has he just inherited Eric Mombert's side and ideology, or has he brought in his own framework? So
people, I really think, are sleeping on how much PK had to do with last year, let alone this season. It's hard to explain without having physically gone there and watched it for yourself. But even under Eric, a lot of the training sessions were run by Paddy. They had very similar mentalities. They were actually very close friends. So I think people credit a lot of it to Eric Momberts just because he was the manager, but really PK had a lot to do with that. And this year, look, he's inherited a pretty good side. There's no one's going to deny that. It's not as if he's building a cellar dweller into this top of the table team, but he has built that himself just as much as Eric did. He's had a solid impact. He's been there with the players for years and years, and the subtle tweaks that we're seeing this season to last season is what I think will actually carry us to go further than last season. The subtle tweak of the way we play Andrew Naboo, I think that's going to be really key for the rest of this season, provided everyone stays injury-free.
Yeah, I've seen in bits and pieces that I've watched of Melbourne City, Kisnorbo seems to be a bit more vocal than Mombert on the sideline. Do you think that has an impact on the way they play, or is it just his personality coming through?
That is definitely his personality to a T, to be up and about, to be vocal, to be really commanding of what he wants. But I think that's probably where you've got Eric Mumbart, who was the complete opposite. You know, he was calm, he was measured, he said what he needed to say, but he had PK there already in training, kind of already saying what he needed to say. So, you know, I think that's just a bit of a personality difference between Eric and PK, and I don't think it's for show. Like even once that sixth goal went in, he was demanding more on Saturday, even though there was probably one kick of the ball left because of the time remaining. So, you know, I think that people really underestimate how much PK had to do with the building of this squad, and also the building of the culture that's starting to show through at Melbourne City. He's served under multiple managers, and he's been a success everywhere he's gone. You know, women's team, youth teams, A-League teams. He's done his role, and I think, people are really going to start to see the best of PK, and they're going to really have to put some respect next to him the more this season goes along, as long as people stay injury-free, because that can derail anyone, let alone, an A-League squad.
So you'd say that, we see a lot of managers who have been assistants in the past, and maybe it takes them a bit to get the dressing room really on their side as the head honcho, but because of the time that he's spent at the club and the relationships he's formed with the players and the input he's had, that he's probably been able to assert himself in that role a bit quicker than most.
Yeah, I'd say he's the level of respect the club and the players and the fans have for him, I think is very different to any former player that in a lot of situations come in. I think it's hardly common for a probably the first ever club legend of your club to then come in and manage you. I think that's the big thing, like just the level of respect. And he's been there for so long. Like that's the thing, he hasn't just returned last year, been an assistant and then suddenly been thrown into the head coach role. He's been there, 5-6 years now, as again, going through the youth team. He worked with, Colo when Colo was 15, for example, in the NPL sides. Yeah. Then you've got him, managing the women's where he managed to have success. So again, in a very stacked squad, but like you can only play what you're given. So I don't buy into that kind of opinion of Melbourne City buying the W League, which I'm sure is a different tangent, but when you pay the salary cap, you get what you're given. But he had success there and he implemented a new style, and then he came in under Joyce and was a fantastic ally. Even when the football wasn't good, he was still a fantastic ally between the players and Joyce, and he was that middle ground. Then under Eric, he made a sizable contribution to the style of football we're playing and taking a leadership role. And then this year, we're finally getting to see what he's got. So I don't think that he's like your standard ex-player who's come in and trying to do the role. He's really put in the hard yards.
Yeah. Well, he certainly looks the part so far this season. Wanted to pivot to more on-field issues, I suppose. I wanted to ask who has stood out for City this season, and also who has not lived up to expectations so far. I know it's sometimes hard to be critical when you're such a mega fan of the club, but if you were just to cast your eye over who's not lived up to expectations and who's really stood out.
It's a hard one to kind of pick on both sides, because I think the beauty of the way City play football is truly that most people are involved, and when it's on, everyone's kind of on. Like we saw it on Saturday, it was very hard to pick a best on ground in a 6-0 win. You'd think someone had stand up and just have like taken control of the game, but there were so many players who had great performances. I'll start with who's been the most disappointing, and it sounds dumb to say after he just scored a brace, but I think Connor Metcalfe for me is one that had been the most disappointing up until the derby. He's got so much talent and can be such in my opinion, a game-changing type of player, and I think he's going to be a very good A-League level player. I think he already is there now.
To be honest, sorry to interrupt, but like I've seen him play for the Oilers, and he's always looked class. So for you to say, he's been the disappointment, I mean, maybe he hasn't come on in leaps and bounds as he would have liked so far. But man, that's a bit harsh in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's why I'm trying to like explain. That's why it feels harsh to say, because he's been such a good player. Like that's the thing. I wouldn't say there's anyone out there this season who you look at it and go, I don't want to see them in the side again for an extended period of time. My reason for Metcalfe's, I guess, selection in that kind of opinion is just he is so much better than some of the performances he's put in. And maybe it is the fact that he was playing in a slightly different position, which didn't help him. But still, you just expect so much from a player of his caliber. So that was a little bit disappointing. But again, like he's a very good player, and he showed on Saturday. So like that's where it's a hard to choose your worst player or someone you've been disappointed with, because you just, depending on your opinion of them, can really sway that. So like, because I hold Connor in such high regard and think he's so good, that's probably why I was a little bit disappointed with some of the performances. Because I agree with you. I think he's probably first named in the Ollie Roos side at the moment in that midfield. Is the key really going forward. And I think he's a future Socceroo, and I don't think it's that far away, if I'm honest. So I really hope to see more of what we saw on Saturday. You know, the way he plays attacking, the way he plays defensive. That's what we need more from Connor. And the slightly different tweak in the midfield is what helped there. Who stood out? Curtis Good. I think he's easily the best centre-back in the league, and realistically should be getting a Socceroos call-up, even if it's not just a domestic squad. I don't think people give him enough credit. You watch him play, I'm sure you'll see it on Friday night. The way he plays balls forward, you know, and the way he acts as a centre-back, he's not a centre-back. You know, he's acting like a midfielder. He's playing balls that you would expect a midfielder to be able to play, and then he's one of the best defenders in the league. I can't speak highly enough of Curtis Good. What was that, sorry?
He's kind of in that quarterback role, being a centre-back that can put those long balls forward and also pick a pass in the midfield.
Yeah, 100%. And we were chatting about it last night on our SEN show, and we were like, you know, most centre-backs, you sit there and you look at it and, you know, you expect 50% of their passing to be between them and the other centre-back, you know, playing 20-metre balls, trying to move the defence around. I'd say 60% of Curtis's balls are not only forward, but forward to an attacking player in an attacking position. He's very underrated, and I can't wait to see the rest of the league start to see more of what Curtis Good has. And I'm sure when he plays for the Socceroos, he's gonna stand up and Australians are going to take notice again.
All right, Matty. I know you're riding high on a 6-0 win against your derby rivals, but can you give us any hope as Bulls fans who've just seen ourselves lose 2-0 to the league-leading Central Coast Mariners? Any weaknesses, anything that might go our way in terms of a tactical setup, in terms of a player who's not really in form, or is it just, you know, are you just going to keep talking about how good they are?
No, I think there's definitely spots where the Bulls can capitalise, and that's what I actually think this game will be a very good game. You know, if the Bulls are able to really capitalise on a counter-attacking style and let City try and build up the way that we like to and try to move forward as a pack, there's a lot of space over the back. You know, I think that's definitely a possibility to really exploit. You know, players like Denny Genre, I'm not sure if he'll be selected because he didn't play, was it last night, which I'm not too sure why. So if he's available, you know, that's a huge inclusion, for example.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be in there because I think he was trying to Ante Milicic was resting a few players on Monday for the Friday. So I think we'll see a couple come back in, especially Genre and Jovanovic as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I definitely wouldn't say it's going to be a whitewash. I think this will be a very good game. As we've seen in a lot of A-League games this season, I think we're seeing a lot of fantastic performances, and I just love to touch on it. This league is amazing. Like, everyone likes to pot shot the A-League for multiple reasons, but it's like, look at what we've had this season. Like, there's been maybe 2 boring games to watch. I can't even think of 2 off the top of my head. You know, you got Central Coast flying again. You've got Melbourne City starting to fire, and that's going to be exciting football. You got Melbourne Victory losing, which is always great. You know, the new clubs are starting to look really good and starting to build something. So there's so much to love about this league and so much positivity around. I think the sky's the limit from here, and I'm looking forward to Friday night because I think it's going to be yet another great game.
Yeah, mate, couldn't agree with you more. You look at every matchup across the league and you're thinking it's hard to pick who will be the victor in that one. That evenness just makes for some salivating matches there. Wanted to press on as well. What is your prediction overall about how this match will play out on Friday, both in a score manner and, you know, the way it's going to play out?
Yeah, I do honestly think City will win. And I'm not saying that just because, you know, being a City fan and trying to rile you guys up. I do genuinely think the quality that City has is enough to win. Like, in all honesty, I think City is probably the standout squad of this A-League this season so far. Like, for what's been assembled, they just haven't clicked. And that's where seeing Andy Nabu go down made such a big difference to this side. So I think that, you know, City will continue on their way, and I think it'll be a 2 or 3-0 victory. But I don't think the scoreline will necessarily reflect the Bulls' standard of play. My opinion is just simply that you've got too many players firing in an attacking sense for Melbourne City to not put a few goals in as long as they take their chances. Like, every game so far, multiple times it should have been, 3 goals or 4 goals. Like literally that game against a Victory, and I know this comes across as banter, but that probably should have been 10-0. If we're like truly critical, we missed 4 or 5 chances in the first half that should have been finished. To go in only at 1-0 at halftime is pretty nuts. And then we scored 5 in the second half. So a 10-0 result wasn't actually that far away, which again, I know sounds ridiculous to say, and it feels ridiculous to say, trust me. But like you just watch this team enough, there's goals in them. And I think that's where City will show. The reason I don't think the Bulls will score is Curtis Good and Nuno Reis are starting to really hit their straps as a centre-back partnership. Glover is finally starting to find his feet. He's the other player that I probably would have named as a disappointing player this season, which is, again, pure and simply because of the high bar he set himself. Like, it's ridiculous to think that we'd be upset with, or not even upset with, just a little bit thinking he's disappointing. But that's what happens when you're as good as those players are. So I think he's starting to find his mojo again. And I do honestly think the way City's set up will nullify a lot of the attacking play that the Bulls have thrown at other teams. I think depending on how Sulsaeta plays, that's the key for me. If he starts to get on the ball and whipping in those crosses, then I think that's where some warning signs will start to, some warning bells will start to ring. But I'm quietly confident that City have enough to get the job done. And I think MacArthur's more than good enough to take the game to us. But I just think there's too much quality in that City squad to go down at home.
Yeah, well, you know all about Sulsaeta from his exploits with you guys before he joined us. But I have to sort of, I guess, flag it for our Bulls fans. I think we're in danger in this game simply because of the 4-day turnaround. And also, we've looked a little bit toothless and one-dimensional in our attack. I think most teams have worked out that we try and just work it down the side, swing it into Derbyshire, and they just... you look at the way Central Coast defended against us. They kind of baited us. They were able to just sit back, let us push up far enough, and then activate a really constricting press onto one side of the field. And if we weren't good enough to get that switch on, it was sort of game over for us. So I feel, not as confident as I was maybe a couple of weeks ago when we were flying high after beating Sydney FC. In saying that, I still think we got the quality to maybe pull out a draw in this one. But I wouldn't be hoping for more than that. I think that would be a bit wishful thinking. Still, we do have the players on paper that can pull something out of the hat. So it'll just depend on what happens in that 90 minutes. Moving on from that, and, it's something I had to ask because you are a Melbourne City fan. I have to ask, what is it like living while plastic?
Well, this is one comment that makes me laugh every time, right? And we talked about it a little bit last night because a couple of Victory fans tried to have a crack at us. So City fans are supposedly plastic, right? And we cop that sledge, but it's like, if you look at our crowd numbers, our membership numbers, everything's remained fairly stable. Like you see some growth, which you would expect over the years of a club being alive, that you would see that growth. But it's like our numbers have stayed stable. We've always had about the 8,000 pretty standard who show up every week. But you have clubs like, Victory, Central Coast even, and I hate to say it because I love the Central Coast. I just like to see teams like that starting to finally get the success that they really deserve. But like you have Victory. Let's use them for example. 27,000 members a couple of years ago, or last year even. Where are they now? They're averaging less than us. And people are like, oh, City of Plastic. I'm like, well, are we though? Because it's like, well, we've had the same fans show up. We've never had this much success to talk about. It's like, well, what's our greatest achievement? It's been an FFA Cup final and our women's side, which two very fantastic things, don't get me wrong. But it's like, to be plastic, generally speaking, you're out there smashing the league, like, how Sydney have been. But still, we draw the same core group of fans. We have the same core group of people showing up, and everyone's like, they're all just plastics, they're glory hunters. What glory have we had to hunt? Like, we've been supporting a team that's routinely disappointed us.
I'm sorry.
I think Victory are the biggest ones. No. It's funny. I like it. It's a good discussion to have, and I think it's just an easy tag to throw around because of what Manchester cops. And to be honest, I say the same thing about Manchester because I'm an Everton fan. So, I think it's a fun comment and a fun conversation to have. But I just always like to actually throw those kind of facts out there and just be like, well, have a look at it, because you got other clubs dropping quite literally 15 to 20,000 members so far this year, and attendance is below what City's getting, and it's like they've been the successful half of Melbourne for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thanks for joining us, mate. We might wrap it up there. And I'd wish you good luck on Friday, but, let's just hope for a good game this Friday.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a good game. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in action and hopefully getting up to see the fantastic stadium and facilities you guys have when we play away.
Yeah, mate, definitely don't give West Leagues a miss. It's a must. It's a must when visiting Campbelltown.
Sounds good.
Thanks, mate.